S23 Ultra. This one is color green, and this is going to be my review after using it for a few weeks. The Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra has a few things that make it better overall compared to the S22 Ultra. In terms of physical difference, on the back you can see that the camera rings on the S23 Ultra are a little bit bigger compared to the S22 Ultra. The side of the S22 Ultra were a little bit too curvy for my taste. They resolved that with the S23 Ultra. And on the front of the device, the screen of the S22 Ultra is the same screen as the S23 Ultra. They all have a QHD screen. These are the physical difference, but what makes the S23 Ultra a better device than the S22 Ultra is the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 for Galaxy. This is very important. For Galaxy means that it is a modified chip for Galaxy devices, so it is clocked at a higher speed than the normal Gen 2 Snapdragon. The cameras on the S23 Ultra are a little bit different, just a little bit, because it has a 200 megapixel wide camera compared to the 108 megapixel wide camera on the S22 Ultra. This is a major upgrade because the 200 megapixel camera is going to capture a lot of details, and there is a mode inside the camera app where you can use only 50 megapixel. The 50 megapixel is achieved by combining a few pixels from the wide camera, and that is going to give you a more sharper image. I had a little bit of time to play with this, and it is a great feature that I think are going to come into more phones coming in the future. In terms of high-end video recording, you can record 8K at 30 frames per second. The S Pen and its feature didn't change much coming from the S22 Ultra. They are pretty much the same. I will come back to the S Pen later. Here I'm checking the temperature of the device after I did one of my tests that can drain 1/4 of the battery in about 1 hour. Usually when I do this type of test, the battery gets drained very fast, and here also it was the case, but the difference compared to the S22 Ultra was that the multi-window didn't stop. So the device is very close to 50 degrees Celsius, and as you can see it now, multi-windows has been disabled because the device had gotten too hot. And to be exactly precise, the device is around 50 degrees near the motherboard. We can conclude that the S22 Ultra is going to have slow, sluggish performance after you have reached 45 degrees near the motherboard. You're going to have some laggy performance. The response is not going to be sharp as the device is cold, but after 50 degrees, your device is going to be overheating, and it is going to protect itself by disabling what you're doing and consuming too much watt. So this test shows only two things: the cooling aspect of this device and the chip that they put inside in order to process all this. I can certify that the cooling of the S23 Ultra is vastly superior to the S22 Ultra. On the S22 Ultra, the multi-window stopped and I was not able to do anything with the device. The device became too hot and it had to stop the multi-window session in order to have a little bit of cooling. Here with the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, it didn't do anything. As you can see, I'm zooming, moving from one application to the other, zooming into the image, that is Facebook, and you have TikTok is playing on the background. I have the camera open on the top left, and also I have a YouTube video playing at the top of the device. You can see this device does it like it is nothing. To summarize, the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 for Galaxy is a beast. It does everything without any struggle. The S23 Ultra is simply a better device overall. It can do everything that the S22 Ultra can do. It does it better, faster, and more efficiently. The S Pen is very functional. You can use it like a normal S Pen, like we used to do it on the Note series. It is the same thing. On the S22 Ultra, it is the same thing also. There is no real upgrade coming from the S22 Ultra S Pen to the S Pen experience on the S23 Ultra. The Galaxy S23 Ultra, being a big phone, typing with two hands is very comfortable, but you can also type with one hand if you have the keyboard in one side of the screen. You can have it on the right or on the left to make your one-hand operation more comfortable. The S23 Ultra that I have is 512 GB of memory and 12 gigs of RAM. So this is a lot, and this is the maximum spec. You can go up to 1 TB of memory, but the RAM stays maximum to 12 GB of RAM. As you can see, after cleaning the RAM memory, I still have only 5.1 gigs of RAM available. At the bottom, you can see we have RAM Plus. This is going to borrow some memory from the main memory of your device and use it as RAM. This is very interesting because it is similar to what Apple does with the MacBook for the unified memory to borrow some memory out of the SSD. So playing video games and all other applications that you have open in the background is going to use the RAM memory of this device. If you have 8 gigs of RAM, I'm sure that your RAM memory is going to be saturated, and that is when the RAM Plus is going to help you have some memory borrowed from your internal memory. So at this moment, I had half of the applications inside this device open, and as you can see, we have only 3 gigs of RAM left. So this simply means that if you have the 8 gigs of RAM model, at this point you're going to be using the RAM Plus. In this device with 12 gigs of RAM, I still have 3 left, and also I have 8 gigs of RAM that can be used as borrowed RAM memory. We can assume that the borrowed RAM memory from the internal memory of the device is not going to be as fast as a dedicated RAM memory. The screen of the S23 Ultra, it is a great screen with QHD. Make sure that you activate QHD in the setting because the device comes with a lower resolution than QHD. If you go in landscape in full screen, you're going to have the hole punch at the top and also at the bottom a black bar very close to the bottom of the device. Multi-window and multitasking are excellent in this S23 Ultra. This is simply the best device for multitasking. You can open multiple applications at the same time. You can still have most of the applications in multi-window, but there are some applications that refuse to go into multi-window. Like the Instagram app, it didn't accept to go into multi-window. There are a few applications that will not do it. Overall, still the best device that you can get for multitasking.